Hey everyone, welcome back to another update. Today we're unpacking Wednesday, March 4th and Thursday, March 5th, days 5 and 6 of Operation Epic Fury, the U.S. led military campaign against Iran. The conflict intensified. U.S. and Israeli forces claimed air superiority over key Iranian regions, released dramatic strike footage, sank more Iranian naval assets, over 30 ships total reported, and hit hundreds more targets, including missile sites, Revolutionary Guard facilities, and regime propaganda infrastructure. Iran continued missile and drone barrages, hitting U.S. bases and allies. Casualties mounted. U.S. deaths reached at least 6, with more wounded, and the Iranian toll is in the hundreds. Trump defended the operation in statements, insisting it was ahead of schedule and aimed at destroying missiles, Navy, and nuclear threats, while warning of a weeks-long effort and no quick deal short of unconditional surrender. Domestically, congressional briefings fueled war powers debates, and the DHS partial shutdown strained emergency response amid heightened terror risks. Let's break it down. U.S. Central Command, or CENTCOM, released fresh footage showing lethal precision strikes. U.S. forces controlled the skies by launching from the sea, with the USS Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group conducting around-the-clock operations. Key highlights included the destruction of mobile missile launchers, ballistic missile facilities in western Iran, over 30 naval ships, including a key submarine sunk, and over 200 additional targets in the past 36 to 48 hours. War Secretary Pete Hegseth and CENTCOM's Administrator Brad Cooper briefed reporters Thursday, framing the campaign as not regime change war, but focused on retribution and objectives: destroy Iran's missile arsenal, navy, and ability to obtain nuclear weapons or fund terrorism. Hegseth said, "More and larger waves are coming. We are just getting started," emphasizing unmatched power and unrelenting force. President Trump echoed this in Truth Social posts and brief remarks, calling progress tremendous after less than a week, mourning fallen troops, and warning more casualties were likely, saying the lives of courageous American heroes may be lost. That often happens in war, but we're going to win decisively. He reiterated no deal except unconditional surrender, adding Iran would have a great future post-regime if a great and acceptable leader emerged, while dismissing Khamenei's son as unacceptable and a lightweight. Iran's response remained aggressive. They continued missile and drone attacks on U.S. bases, Israeli targets, and Gulf shipping, including shadow tankers. Tehran reported chaos, state media urged resistance. Global fallout included oil price spikes, evacuation advisories, and UN condemnation of escalation. Secretary of State Marco Rubio's spokesperson announced over 17,000 Americans have successfully fled from the Middle East. The Pentagon confirmed 6 U.S. service members killed in action, 4 identified from initial strikes, 2 more from ongoing operations, with others seriously wounded. The 2 recently confirmed include Major Jeffrey O'Brien of Iowa and Chief Warrant Officer 3 Robert Marzin of California. CENTCOM emphasized recovery of remains and ongoing support. Congress held classified briefings, during which the Democrats demanded immediate war powers votes to constrain further action, fearing boots-on-the-ground escalation despite Pentagon denials. Republicans largely backed continuation, and the House passed a measure to end the DHS shutdown, but Senate Democrats blocked it, tying funding fights to war oversight. This brings us right into our next topic. The partial DHS shutdown continued with no resolution. The House approved a funding bill Thursday, 221 to 209, but Senate Democrats blocked similar legislation, demanding ICE reforms amid Minneapolis fallout. Emergency measures strained resources. FEMA halted non-disaster work, delaying World Cup in America 250 security grants, and TSA conserved privileges, with global entry paused and some escorts suspended, but stabilized pre-check after backlash. Public safety experts warned the lapse could delay terror threat responses, especially critical now with the Iran conflict potentially inspiring domestic attacks. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem testified before the House Judiciary Committee on staffing strains. Morale is low with unpaid essential workers. Shutdown risks ripple into spring travel and heightened alerts. Secretary Noem also testified on other DHS oversight matters, including questions on enforcement crackdowns and allegations involving personal matters, like rumored ties to Corey Lewandowski. The day after this testimony, Noem was fired from her position and reassigned to her new role as Special Envoy for the Shield of Americas, a Western Hemisphere security initiative with details emerging. Trump announced this change via Truth Social, citing accumulated issues, and administration sources and reports highlight a culmination of unfortunate leadership failures, including immigration crackdown controversies, a $220 million ad campaign, internal feuds and mismanagement, and perceived disloyalty. President Trump nominated Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin as her replacement, praising him as a dog lover in a subtle jab referencing Noam's lingering cricket controversy from her 2024 book. Senator Mullin will assume the DHS Secretary position on March 31st. On to the Minnesota fraud testimonies. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison testified before the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, with the hearing focused on an alleged massive fraud scandal involving billions in federal funds meant for programs like child nutrition, housing, healthcare, and other social services. Republicans accused state officials of allowing the fraud to flourish, covering it up, and retaliating against whistleblowers. Both Walz and Ellison defended their administration's actions, emphasizing efforts to combat fraud where possible. Ellison highlighted his office's successes, such as securing over 300 Medicaid fraud convictions and recovering more than $80 million. They argued they had taken steps within their authority, but stressed that fraud investigations are complex and often handled at the federal or local level. Republicans repeatedly pressed them on timelines. When did they first learn of issues? Committee reports and whistleblower accounts claimed awareness as early as 2019 in DHS programs and 2020 in education-related fraud, with allegations they downplayed or ignored warnings. Walz and Ellison pushed back on claims of knowledge or inaction, insisting they acted responsibly once credible evidence emerged. They denied lying about awareness or deliberately misleading the public. GOP members cited whistleblower testimony alleging retaliation against employees who raised red flags and failures to pause payments or intervene decisively. The committee released an interim report titled "The Cost of Doing Nothing: How Tim Walz and Keith Ellison Fueled Minnesota's Fraud Explosion," accusing them of knowing for years, misleading people, and failing to act despite authority. Both Walz and Ellison shifted focus to criticize the Trump administration's Operation Metro Surge, claiming it harmed the state's economy, diverted resources from fraud investigations, scarred communities, and undermined fraud enforcement efforts. This was a major point of contention, with Democrats on the committee echoing concerns about immigration crackdowns. The hearing was heated and partisan. Republicans grilled them aggressively on accountability and alleged cover-ups, while Walz and Ellison portrayed the scrutiny as politically motivated. Post-hearing, both reportedly declined to answer press questions on why the fraud wasn't caught sooner. The committee wrap-up accused them of lying about knowledge and silencing whistleblowers. Now it's time for the noteworthy tidbits, which are brought to you today by Zevo Life. Let me tell you about them quick. Looking for a game-changing way to improve your health? Zevo Life is the world's most nutrient-dense whole plant, packed with over 50% plant protein, essential amino acids, fiber, and antioxidants. Harnessing the best nature has to offer, Zevo Life nourishes your body while driving your performance, vitality, and overall well-being. Each serving is a concentrated source of clean, well-balanced nutrition designed to support modern lifestyles, and just 1 teaspoon a day supports your gut, boosts energy, and promotes healthier skin and hair. It's no wonder that it's receiving rave 5-star reviews. Step into a healthier future with a 30% discount and a 30-day risk-free guarantee by visiting zivo.life and using my promo code. To support my show and to receive 30% off your entire order, enter in my promo code JADE, that's JADE, at checkout. All right, let's get back to the tidbits. Representative James Comer moved to have Bill Gates and others testify as part of the committee's ongoing investigation into Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking network, and Representative Nancy Mace moved to subpoena Attorney General Pam Bondi during a House Oversight Committee hearing, accusing the Department of Justice under Bondi of failing to comply with congressional requirements for transparency. The committee voted in favor of that 24-19. Representative Tony Gonzalez dropped out of the race for re-election in Texas' 23rd Congressional District, and as a result, Brandon Herrera is the Republican nominee. All 39 anti-ICE protesters who ambushed a Minnesota church have now been located and arrested. The U.S. Supreme Court unanimously struck down activist judge attempts to shield migrants from deportation by simply claiming they'd face persecution if deported. The U.S. Senate advanced affordable housing legislation 90-8, and they rejected the Democrat-pushed effort to block President Trump's strikes on Iran. U.S. Senator Steve Daines announced his retirement and will therefore not be seeking re-election in Montana in 2026. He immediately endorsed Trump appointee Kurt Alm, the current U.S. Attorney for Montana. Real Clear Politics found that President Trump has a higher approval rating than Obama and Bush at this point in their second terms. Representative Andy Ogles filed legislation to ban immigration into the United States from top Muslim nations. The FCC is pushing to crack down on foreign call and scam centers with proposals including an English requirement, onshoring jobs, and possible targeted tariffs. That's March 4th and 5th wrapped. Operation Epic Fury claims major gains, but casualties rise. Iran fights back, disapproval grows, and the DHS shutdown adds domestic vulnerability. As the conflict enters its second week, how long until objectives are met or costs become unsustainable? Share your thoughts on Instagram or X at Shades of Jade Pod. If the added detail is hitting the mark, subscribe, leave a review, and tell a friend. Thank you for listening and have a great day.